Hello, so my name's Michael Conneely, and this is a presentation on the 21st Nakshatra, Uttara Ashadha. And the Nakshatras are, of course, the wonderful 27-sign lunar zodiac of Vedic astrology that give us such rounded insight into our personalities, into our spiritual pathway for best healing, the inevitable difficult sides of our personalities, and into relationship astrology, clear statements of the nature of the relationship we might typically enter and how to do best with that. And so you can get in touch with me for an astrology reading or to do one of my many Vedic astrology courses and Western astrology courses. So the 21st Nakshatra, Uttara Ashadha, is an extremely tough energy. So basically the translation means something like unchallenged victory. And the power animal is the mongoose, whose qualities are sort of viciousness and speed, and who in the nakshatra system has no natural mate, which betokens a very definite, difficult challenge in marriage and relationship that Uttara Ashadha has. And that doesn't mean to say that they can't make successful relationship, but they would perhaps do well to consider the perspectives on their relationship issues offered by the nakshatras. And so the energy of the nakshatra is said to be sharp and dreadful in an active way. And the symbol is the planks of a bed. In other words, a bed with no bedding, which indicates obviously marriage issues. The motivation is moksha or spiritual liberation. The caste is kshatriya or warrior. And most importantly, the ruling deity is the Vishvadevas, the universal gods. So let's look at a few keywords for Uttara Ashadha and the love issues, and then point to what is the highest fulfillment for people with a big emphasis in Uttara Ashadha, a planet there, particularly, of course, Sun, Moon, Ascendant there. So basically, as you'd sort of learn in my nakshatra course or here in a reading, relevant keywords to Uttara Ashadha are enduring, invincible, dogged, persistent to succeed, responsible, a challenger with a forceful path, quite noted for having luck at the right time. Sounds good. Can be a lonely and enduring path. So it's a much more introspective energy than the preceding nakshatra, nakshatra 20, Purvashadha, which is sort of the fulfillment of. And so they get deeply involved in their tasks, they have leadership qualities, and can develop affluence. And they're law-abiding and religious, patient, righteous and responsible, methodical, sincere and calculating. So very responsible people, but I feel like a rather dry path. And they make quite awesome sort of spiritual teachers or managers, but as you can perhaps pick up, unless they heal the dry or negative qualities, it can damage others because it'll tinge what they do as a manager or a spiritual teacher. So basically, Uttara Ashadha runs from 26 degrees 40 Vedic Sagittarius into 10 degrees Capricorn. So there's quite a difference if you have your planet in the Sagittarius part of Uttara Ashadha or in the later Capricorn part. And so obviously Jupiter is more expansionary, whereas the energy of Saturn is more practical, less hope, less idealism, less expansiveness, more a place for endurance perhaps. And there's a teaching really that every error an Uttara Ashadha person makes gets amplified, and that's due to the enormous capacity of this nakshatra to influence others. And particularly in the Capricorn parts, the emphasis is on concrete achievement, displaying nerves of steel in the stand they take, and there can be exaggerated attention to worldliness and accumulation. But nevertheless, there is great integrity, sincerity, committedness and ambition. They will stand up for what they believe is right. They will practice what they preach, and they can make good advisors, although they can make very dogmatic advisors as well. And they can be quite pioneering in a very solid, methodical way, and thus set up the company or the spiritual organisation, whatever it is. And basically, I think if they haven't got a cause or a purpose, they can get rather depressed and apathetic, I've noticed. But their downside, of course, is that they are so rigid, so unbending, so upholding, they get self-centered and stubborn. They tend to do better as their life progresses, later on in life. So as I said, they're particularly noted for having no natural mate. They're particularly noted for not having an easy task of finding successful love. They have a difficult life script for marriage, particularly if it's the moon. And so, as I said, the symbol for Uttara Ashadha is the planks of a bed, the austere bed. It's not made for comfort. And they like control and dominance, so their partners can just get pushed out. And of course they go for materialism and success, but not necessarily pleasure or happiness. And they can be so stubborn and self-centered and actually just simply end up with lack of interest in their relationship. The husband's there to have the 9-to-5 job, bring in the cash to keep the nice house. And so they can have an emotional distance from others and have difficulty expressing warmth and love. They're often said to have a difficulty with father. And they can be very self-indulgent in sticking to their austere nature. And they don't obviously, if they're like this, have a high sort of sexual confidence. And, they can get involved in denial around that. They're quite reputed for sort of, particularly early in life, rushing into a relationship, which can in fact have ill foundation and not go well at all. And so they end up quite cold. And they're very plain speaking and direct. So they might not understand, the partner with the sense of fun, the crack, as they call it here in Ireland. Or they might manage a thin smile if crack was offered. Well, What can we say is I feel is the highest fulfilment for someone with a big Uttara Ashadha emphasis in life? And I think the key is the Vishvadevas, the ruling deity. I think the Uttara Ashadha has to develop connection to spiritual purpose and spiritual truth, and let that be their guidance. I think they have to discard very material definitions or rule-bound definitions of what life is, how the family should behave, who's the good person in the family, who's the scapegoat. They need to go beyond that to connect to the divine inspiration. And that's why I feel it's so appropriate to have the Vishvadevas as the ruling deity. They can be quite scholastic and academic, and they can use books to help them understand their spiritual path. And that's good. But they have to go beyond a situation where the book learning is in a little sort of corralled area all of its own, which doesn't really tie into their life. It's no good reading the Catholic Herald and then treating your family appallingly. So basically you have to use the ability for academic and book learning to be a foundation for genuine and loving spiritual practice, and for the ability to open up to higher and more loving connection. And in that way, I feel the Uttara Ashadha person can become such a solid influence for their family, such an elder statesman, if you like. So have a look at my Nakshatras course, have a look at my wonderful astrology readings. The websites are detailed in the YouTube right up below, and there's a blog associated with this nakshatra. Thank you.